All right, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to Ticketing in 2021, a discussion with MLB. I'm Josh Rose. I'm the CBO at FEVO. I'll be hosting today's webinar with my good friend Alex Marsh, who will be co-hosting from Major League Baseball. We'll give everyone, kind of 30 seconds to a minute here to get logged in and set up for the webinar before we get started. I'll just kind of kick things off with a few opening remarks. For starters, would be remiss if I didn't thank, Alex and our friends at MLB for supporting today's webinar. Obviously, really excited to have your guys' support. You guys are great partners, so thanks for joining. Look, guys, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. We're gonna have a webinar that's a little bit more forward-looking. I think we're all probably sick of talking about what 2020 looked like, and a lot of good news around vaccine rollouts, states starting to slowly ease capacity restrictions and things like that. So a lot to be hopeful for. This is obviously an MLB focused panel. But in good news, we have representation on from all 5 major leagues, as well as NCAA, amateur and minor league sports, and some music friends as well. So nice diverse group of about 700 people today. So we're excited to kind of get things started. Before we get into the details, let's just go around and do super quick introductions. What you guys do for your teams and properties. Alex, you want to kick things off since you're my co-host?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Josh. Hi everybody. My name's Alex Marsh from Major League Baseball. I'm the manager of ticketing from our ticketing department at MLB. So I oversee and focus on group sales specifically. But overall, we work with obviously Kurt and Paige and Jim here from our 3 clubs and all 30 clubs in minor league as well. But really excited to be here today working with FEVO, and it is a great honor and excited to, hear what our 3 panelists here have to say and get ready for opening day in about a month.
1 month. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That's awesome. Paige, why don't you kick things off for our panelists?
That's great. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to spend this time with everyone here, and thanks for everyone tuning in. We appreciate you watching and joining in. I'm Paige Farragut. I oversee ticketing for the Texas Rangers baseball team, and we're very blessed that we've been able to have fans out already in different capacities, but we're most excited about our regular season that's about to start in a month.
Kurt?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. It's an honor to be on this panel with Paige and Jim and you guys. I'm Kurt Waugh. I oversee ticketing with the San Diego Padres.
And last but not least, Jim.
Jim Willits, everyone. Josh, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone enjoys the conversation today. Vice President of Sales and pretty much everything having to do with putting a butt in the seat for the Chicago White Sox.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Jim. Cool, guys. So let's kick it off. Today's format's going to be very casual, open discussion. If anybody has any questions for our panelists, please feel free to fire away in the chat, and we'll hopefully get to all or at least some of your questions in the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's session. So look, our 3 panelists, obviously, like they said, they're leaders for their teams. Also just great industry people and heroes from my perspective. All have kids, all have led both their professional and personal teams through the last year. Let's start looking ahead to a great 2021. Paige, why don't you kick things off? How are you guys handling this upcoming season? What does this season look like for the Rangers?
We're hoping we can have 50% fans. We're planning for that. And then it's not approved right now, but that's what we're planning for. Lucky for us, we've been able to do various baseball games already. We were able to host the NLCS championship games and then the World Series. So that was somewhat of a dress rehearsal for us, but we've been very blessed because we have a new ballpark and a lot of people haven't been able to come in yet, that we were able to have people's commitments move from 2020 right into 2021. And so we're working on all the protocols that we need to have everybody out here in a safe space. And then the communication, it's difficult and challenging sometimes when clients are like, well, can you tell me the plan? How many people can I bring? Or am I going to have to not use all my tickets? So we're being very intentional and diligent with multiple scenarios based on how many people can come out, how many people can be in our suites. Are there going to be opportunities for group fans or individual tickets? So it's evolving, and that's one of the things we've learned this year. It's such a fluid process. You really do need to pivot, but our goal is to open the doors with our exhibition games at the end of March, and then we're going to on April 5th against the Blue Jays. But our plan is to get people in this ballpark.
Terrific. And you guys have been in a little bit of a unique situation, having a brand new stadium. I'm sure there's a lot of interest around that. How has that, kind of added a layer into all the planning?
Because of that, I think people have been exceptionally willing to let us, hold on to their money and move over to 2021. Right before COVID, knocked the world on its feet, we had only been able to have 1,000 of our season ticket members, suite clients, out to even do a behind the curtains peek at the new ballpark. We weren't even finished with construction. We'd just gotten back from spring training with our suite clients and our sponsorship partners. And we were thinking, here we go, we're about to open with Chris Stapleton. And all of a sudden we weren't. But because we were able to stay engaged, like all teams have done across all leagues, staying engaged with our fans and keeping them informed and getting in front of them with as much information as we could allowed us to have people stay on board. And then we have been flexible with people, but certainly pivoting very quickly and saying, okay, what can we do to keep these people engaged? That was the first question that came up, in addition to, keeping the team engaged.
Terrific. Kurt, what's going on with the Padres? How are you and your team, kind of looking and strategizing, around this year?
Great question. Similar to Paige, we've been so focused on trying to reopen our ballpark when we do get the authorization from the state and local authorities, which we're hopeful for and optimistic about. I think just like everybody else, and we've had the ability to watch from afar how the NCAA and the NFL have done it. Obviously, Paige and her team in Texas. So we'll be ready to go to open the doors hopefully April 1st against the Diamondbacks. But I think to her other point too, just staying in contact throughout the pandemic has been important for us. And I think I remember vividly the night that the sports world changed with the Rudy Gobert incident in Oklahoma City at a Thunder game. And we were actually hosting a premium event in our Premier Club, delivering tickets for the home opener that year. And honestly, I had a bunch of clients just asking us, like, what's going to happen? What's going on? And frankly, we didn't have any answers then. And I think we've just been open and honest about where we're at, and our customers have responded well to us with a very high renewal rate, very high new sales rate. We're just focused on having people back as soon as possible, and we'll be ready to do so.
Terrific. Jim, what about you guys?
A lot of the same, just waiting on local and state officials here in Illinois. But I think over communicating to our fans and letting them know what's going on as much as possible within reason without getting ourselves in any trouble has been our biggest goal. And then now just preparing for our opener here April 8th as well has been a challenge, because it's not like, and just like everybody on the call and everybody out there in the ticket world, it's not like anybody in the room can say, well, I've done this before. I've done a Winter Classic before. I've done a World Series before. I know how to handle. None of us have handled anything like this with regard to fans, no fans, or any of that. So it's been a complete learning process for everybody. And I think that it's been interesting to see all leagues from, mostly like Kurt said, I've talked to a ton of NFL teams and been on a lot of calls with colleges and NFL teams talking about what went right and what went wrong. And hopefully that's what happens in this market, because every market's different. So our goal is to make it the best possible scenario for the fans, hopefully at limited capacity, and eventually get to a few more fans in the ballpark for this season.
Great, thanks, Jim. I guess from an MLB standpoint, obviously we took an approach this year going into 2021 where we weren't really setting the guidelines for how you guys are going to be handling going into the season. You're going to be following, local and state guidelines. So I guess my question would be, how exactly are you planning for, ticketing your season ticket holders, your premium areas, your suite areas? What is that necessarily going to look like as we go into the season? Like we said, a month away from now, I guess, Paige, if you want to tackle that first, just kind of what does that ticketing product look like for right now, and how you're handling, the different capacities and planning for, somewhat of an unknown world.
So what we're doing and planning, again, nothing's approved. This is just, we're ideating on like, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do to make sure that our season ticket members and our suite clients and partners get first opportunity to be in our ballpark? So what we're thinking is going on a month-by-month basis, where clients, season ticket members will have the opportunity to secure as many April games as they want. And then if they don't feel comfortable, they don't necessarily have to do that. We want them to come out, and we're certainly going to work with them. And then from there, we look at, okay, how many season ticket members are coming back? And then we layer in all the ancillary items. We look at group tickets, individual tickets. And so we're thinking that that will be how we roll it out, and then look at, are we going to be able to have more fans than in May than we had in April? And then looking at, okay, all of our suite clients, well, we were able to have suite clients all through the postseason. And then we've done other things, college baseball, high school baseball. So we know that the suite spaces are going to be fine. We put plexiglass up between them. So communication, we're working on that right now. We're hoping we can get our final numbers and capacity secured within the next week or two, and then we can roll out the communications to our team. But the number one priority is getting those season ticket members in this ballpark.
Great. Thanks, Paige. Let's jump to Kurt. I know it's obviously a little bit different in California versus Texas, kind of where we're at, but how are you guys planning in terms of what those ticketing products are going to look like? How are you communicating with your season ticket members, and then, down to your suite and group clients?
I would love to have had as many dry runs as Paige so far. That'd be great right now. We'd be good to go. So we, like I said, we're waiting on state and local authorities to let us know what's going to happen. But I think from our perspective, what we're planning for right now is to basically break the season down into 3 segments. Segment 1, April and May. Segment 2, June, July, and then August and September being the third one. And that way we have the ability, if we can increase our capacity, to restructure our seating manifest to essentially get to a higher capacity. Within that, we're also going to work with our base to work on an opt-out strategy, because we still think that some people might not feel comfortable coming to the venue yet. So we'll allow people to let us know how they feel. Once we get our opt-in rate kind of dialed in, we'll go through and we'll reseat everybody effectively. Our plans are going to stay their plans. If we have any games that don't have fans at them, we'll just prorate those down. So if we go from 81 home games down to 70 home games with fans, we'll take those 10 games out of their package and put that on the renewal credit for next year, like we did this past season. So we had a little bit of a dry run there for the credit process. Communication is going to be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different facets within our membership platform that we have to make sure we cover off on. So we're working through that plan right now. So we'll be prepared for 10%, 20%, 25%, what that looks like. And then we'll start to ideate on how we grow that from 25 to 50%. I think that's just where everything goes a little bit kind of haywire with social distancing with the 50% capacity. So right now we're planning for social distance, we're planning for pod seating, how to manifest our premium inventory, how do we then backfill our tenured members, how do we then backfill single game and group tickets in there. We have the benefit of having 10 hospitality spaces here at our ballpark that are exclusively for groups. Those are going to be a combination of groups and single game this year, because we just don't have enough inventory to cover off our group clients, because we just don't know what the corporate base is going to look like here in Southern California. So we're planning for all of those things. I think communication is going to be key. And I think all of our, all the way from our legal group to our marketing group to our ticketing group, has been really dialed in and focused on what that looks like. So when we do get the authority from the state and local governments to do it, we'll be able to put our plan together and finalize it.
Great, thanks, Kurt. Jim, same question. I mean, how are you guys in Chicago really, looking at what this season is going to look like and what products you're going to be able to get out to your fans?
I feel like since this is a Friday, maybe secretly some people out there are taking this under as a drinking game. Every time we say state and local officials, everyone has to drink a drink of a beer. Maybe it's a little early for that in some areas of the country, but we have to wait until state and local officials give us the green light. So I hate to keep repeating that, but it really is where we're at. And, Paige has obviously had a lot more freedom and a lot more experience in having fans and people in the ballpark and working the kinks out. And I think that one of the calls with some of the NFL teams, one of them said, basically everything you expect to happen won't happen. Like they went out with big pods, none of them sold. Only the twos and fours sold. Like because they were trying to get more inventory. They thought they could sell all those pods, and they thought that people would come out in droves. They didn't come out in droves. So I think there's so many variables for us to try and figure out what we're going to do this season. It's tough to say. And again, back to the whole state and local thing. As soon as we get green lighted there, we've got plans, 4 or 5 or 6, 7 different plans and direction we're going to go. And as soon as we get permission from them, we're going to grab the one that fits the best and go that direction. But ultimately, just like everybody, take care of our season ticket holders, whether it's a 10-game plan all the way up to a full and kind of a waterfall effort, starting with the fulls and work our way down, and then see what kind of inventory we have, what kind of inventory we have left, and see if we go into single game sales or not. And then as we plan for the rest of the season, obviously just helping drive revenue, because losing a whole season of revenue is something we have to try and get back to and fix for our owners and the organization, so we can get back to full force here and get back to playing in front of large crowds.
Thanks, Jim. So one word that all three of you guys mentioned is communication, right? I think communication is really challenging in an environment where the goalposts are being moved on you constantly with state and local jurisdiction and safety measures. Can you guys just talk a little bit about how are you communicating to your consumers, right? Are you using social? Are you keeping it a little bit under the radar with, your sales team and your executives? What's worked for you guys from a communication standpoint?
I'll take that one.
Oh, sorry,
I'll use my favorite term I've been using a lot lately from our marketing group, omni-channel marketing. We're hitting them every way we possibly can. No, I think from our perspective, a lot of it's been one-to-one. I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic specifically, there was a lot of check-in calls, making sure our customers were doing all right, just kind of seeing how they were. But then we didn't turn off essentially that sales faucet. We were still actively prospecting. We were still actively selling, still actively hosting appointments virtually. I think now more than ever, it's about when we do put our communication plans out, making sure that we're explicit in what's available. I think we noticed that a little bit earlier this week when we went on sale with spring training tickets, and they went in a matter of hours. I think we are so close to the fire on this thing that we know we don't have enough inventory, right? But I think the average consumer, the average fan right now thinks that, hey, I'll be able to get one of those 5,000 tickets that's available. But the reality is there's 100,000 of those other people out there trying to get those tickets at the same time. So being extremely explicit with what's available, how fast it's moving, if we open up additional inventory when we do that, making sure our members have priority access and ensuring that they have the ability to get what they need. I think the other piece too, from a group and suite and hospitality perspective, is just having a really good understanding of what companies are expecting out of us. Like, we have a pretty good understanding of what we think we're going to have to do and what we've seen across the sports landscape, but what's the expectation of the customer, and having those really clear dialogue conversations with them, that's been extremely important. And I think the other piece too, we've done a lot with SMS this year via Zipwhip, who's a partner of ours. That's been a massive tool for us during the stretch after we signed Tatis and after the trades back in December, just being really effective and kind of meeting people where they're at. So I think those have been probably the most important for us.
Thanks for sharing that, Kurt. Paige, what about you guys?
Well, like you said, has it been more hand-to-hand, or has it been more social or email correspondence, or all different communication aspects? At the very beginning, when this was all happening, and we literally told the team, everyone go home. I mean, Chris Stapleton just pulled out, it's not happening. So right then the communication was directly with the team, on the front lines, all of our front office employees. So as our IT department went around, we were like, everyone pack up, take your desks, take everything you can, you're going home and we don't know when you're coming back. So that was the first communication, is how do we get these team members up and running to where they can continue with the initiatives. The Texas Rangers never took the stance that we weren't going to continue to sell, because we truly believed at that point we were selling hope. It's the first time in the entire and ever that a pandemic in our lives was touching the entire world. So not only were a certain group or a certain state dealing with it. The entire country, the entire world was dealing with it. So there was no script, there was no historical data, there was nothing we could lean on to get information, the best way to handle not only our employees, but also the communication with fans. So the very beginning, it was having this team call all of their clients, explain what's going on, tell them, here's what we're thinking for our season tickets. This is what we're thinking for suites. Our goal is to get you guys moved over, because at that point, we were still hoping for a mid-season start, and then we were hoping for a late season start. So the main ask was for patience in unprecedented times. And I think a lot of it, I know, has to do with the new ballpark. People were patient, but it couldn't be a call that says, you'll see a post or you'll get an email when we know what we're doing. It was steps, little baby steps along the way. And the comms were more reps to sales reps out to all clients. And it was different things, because so many people, lost their jobs. So many people got furloughed in different industries. So you had to think of, okay, when I call this person, am I getting someone who's ready to talk about baseball on the phone, or am I getting somebody who is struggling? So the first layer of communications was, how are you? Wellness checks. Is there anything we can do? Is there something that we can have you participate in? So from there, like many teams very quickly pivoted and started having the happy hour with different players or GM or front office people. We also, which a lot of teams did, we created a template to where our team would put a picture of how they're handling quarantine and what recipe did they find that they like, or what Netflix show are they binging. And we sent those out to our season ticket members. Well, the reps did it. And then different feedback that we got back was, wow, it's so nice to have someone talk to me about how I'm personally doing or how my kids are doing. So a lot of the beginning was communication, phone calls, emails. We did Zoom calls with clients. Then as we've gone farther along and could get a plan together, then we could start communicating. Okay, we're hoping for after, an all-star break. Okay, we're hoping to have fans at the end of the season. Okay, just kidding. We're going to have fans for NLCS, which for us, that was a big win, because we could invite even Ranger fans to come watch real baseball in our ballpark. And then another way we communicated with clients was when people were on the road towards the end of the season, when the team was on the road, we would start having fans out in suites. I mean, it's the cleanest suite you could ever be in. Nobody's been in it. So we would have clients come out and just kind of talk them through what we were thinking. And then as we moved along, the plans got more definitive. But here we are again. It's repeating the cycle of waiting to find out how we're going to handle it, and making sure you have a team of people who are constantly communicating is more elevated than it's ever been.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I want to actually circle back to a point you made in a minute about, it's kind of an interesting opportunity to engage the fans, when there's no events going on, with happy hours and things like that. So let's circle back there, because I'm definitely curious, what you guys did, to drive some engagement. That sounds like a pretty unique opportunity to do happy hours and things like that, which sounds really, really cool. Jim, what about you guys? Any kind of thoughts or best practices? Like, how are you guys kind of communicating with the fans, amid the chaos, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, just to start, no one really knew what to do. I mean, we actually haven't had any staff in the park since March 12th. So we have been completely remote, 100%, and coming up on a year now, believe it or not. But we started off from our current client basis, our season ticket holders. We didn't really want to take the approach where we would sit back and hide from it, or not acknowledge them, or not get to them. We reached out to them right away, similar to what Kurt and Paige said, and contacted them and said, hey, here we are. We're here for you. We're not really sure what's going on either, but we're here, and you can contact us at any moment and ask questions. We did get a lot of feedback that we were one of the few teams that was doing that. No offense to anybody in the Chicago market, but early on, just saying, listen, once we know something, we'll get you the information, but we're here. And that's how we kind of started our approach from taking care of our current clients. As far as new business goes, we peeled back a little bit and just laid kind of low, because people were, so uncertain. So many people were remote. So many people were kids, and, that were 100% remote. People were losing their jobs. It was a whole thing. So we peeled back for a while on the new business side, and just kind of told the reps, hey, you can call people, but don't go crazy. and just, but check in with people that you've been having dialogue with. But, just cold calling someone right now probably isn't the best option. And then as we progressed, and as the season progressed, and again, we were hoping for fans the whole time too, and we didn't want to get caught with our feet in quicksand, and push the button, go. You're supposed to get people in the ballpark, and then we got to get crazy and call as many people as possible. But as we got into the postseason, the White Sox hadn't been in the postseason in, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. So, that's when a lot of teams and organizations take full advantage of new sales for the following year, is during the postseason. And we had a lot of conversations about whether or not, we can pursue that and take advantage of that. But we're like, wow, we haven't been in the postseason for so long. We have to. So we kind of went into full sales mode at that point, trying to take advantage. Now, we didn't have the leverage that we normally would do and say, hey, buy a ticket for next year and get a postseason strip, because we weren't allowing people in the fans. But there was high interest in our team. We were doing a lot. First time in the postseason, it was a lot of fun. And we really kind of started getting after it from a new business perspective. And then also a little bit later, a renewal perspective. And probably in most of middle October, late October and November, we really kind of went back into full sales mode and renewal mode, and acted as if we were all in the office. And we had all of our staff had computers and access to everything they needed, from Ticketmaster to CRM, and using their phones. And they weren't getting direct calls back. They were at first, but then we got that set up where they could forward their calls from their desks. And really, they've kind of acted as if they've been in the office this whole entire time after mid-October. And that's how we've gotten where we are today. We've had a really great success on renewals and new business, and setting ourselves up for success on the group side. So when fans do get in the ballpark this year, we're rocking and rolling. So I think that's been quite an experience. We've kind of went through every phase of it, to kind of laying back to going right back to acting as if we're in the office right now. And we've got we're also down a number of staff, and we've got a great owner who we haven't had to, knock wood, let anybody go. And we've lost some staff just because I think the allure of the game isn't there, and it's just a regular old sales job, because there's no games to go to, there's no excitement. I think they went on and to do some other things, and there's also a lot of uncertainty, and they went on and got other job offers because they're good sales reps and good service reps, and they took advantage of this time to go look at some other opportunities. So we are down about 15 or 20 people, but we still got a decent amount of people still there, hustling and working. And, it's been great. We didn't have to let anybody go because, we have a great owner. So it's been positive.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. And, Kurt and Paige kind of said the same thing. Listen, I think it's okay to play offense during times like this, as long as you're empathetic and, you realize that obviously there are some folks out there who are hurting, but, if you have the right tone and the right approach, it is okay to play offense. And I think people do appreciate, going above and beyond with the communication, right? And Kurt, I want to speak to something that you said as well, kind of the omni-channel communication. I think our three panelists are really, fortunate. They've been able to keep a lot of their teams in place and have their team members do a lot of the communication. I know there's actually a lot of organizations on the call who have smaller teams or are shorter on staffs. Looking at your SMS, kind of capabilities, leveraging social media, right? Like leveraging your database, a lot of good ways to get the word out at scale without having to pick up the phone and call everybody, right? Obviously, everyone likes to hear from a human during tough times, but a lot of really good ways to kind of get the word out. With that said, Paige, you said something really cool, kind of happy hours with the players. Look, we can't entertain our consumers the way that we normally do. What have you guys done to engage, kind of your fans or your consumers while they are at home, during kind of the COVID restrictions, right? Like any cool kind of initiatives or virtual things or, things you guys can share on that front? I mean, virtual happy hour sounds right up my alley.
Yes, that's exactly one of the very first things we did is, okay, well, these people are at home and we still want to talk about the brand new ballpark, and people were very curious. So we're like, okay, how can we lean into that and then still be able to advance the narrative on how great it's going to be when you come back? And then also talk about, okay, tell us about your first baseball memory with your mom or your granddad or your dad. And we had the sponsors send wine and some whiskey to clients on various happy hour Zoom calls. And so the gift would show up and then people would log in, and then we would have questions pre-submitted in some cases, or it'd be more of a fireside chat, so to speak. And then people could just dialogue depending on how big the call was. And then we did different subsets of our season ticket members. We did suite clients. We did one for our advisory board. And then beyond that, we did do the things that you could touch more people with. Like I mentioned, the little data point that has what you're doing. And then we asked clients to reach back out to us and tell us what they're doing. And we would get people taking pictures in their Ranger gear. And then on the away game broadcast, we would then put those pictures of people's families in the broadcast, like submit your picture by this date and we'll get you in the broadcast. So we were able to do different engagement that weren't traditional. And then I mentioned for a second before, but as the road games were happening, we invited 6 people at a time, up to 6, a family, to come sit in a private luxury suite, socially distanced, masked, and then we had dinner delivered to the suite before they got there. So there was very little interaction. And so they got to sit in a suite and watch the video boards and hear the game and, see the ballpark, which then they turn around and then go tell their clients, neighbors, colleagues, and friends, wow, wait, it's worth the wait, stay engaged. And then we did not slow the outbound sales efforts. We kept going because we really clung to the fact that we're selling hope and we will open. And, it's not in the time frame that we want, but it will happen. And then inside the room, we did, small things with our sales team, like they all sent me their baby pictures. And then I created a quiz, and then we'd send a picture out and they try to guess who the baby was. And, once you get it right, then I send the 20 question, get to know that person, quiz opportunity. So, something to know our team members, even though we're all working from home.
Oh my God, Paige, you're making me feel like a terrible manager. That's really cool. I love the touch point and kind of the personal, getting to know the team a little bit better, right? It is tough times for everyone. That's awesome. Kurt, what about you guys? So, like, any cool kind of, creative, engagement opportunities that you guys are doing with the fans or the consumers?
I feel like what you just said a second ago, I feel like a terrible manager. I should have asked everybody's baby pictures earlier this year, and we played that quiz game. The virtual experience, we've done a few of them. I think the tough part is I think everyone's got Zoom fatigue right now. So you send those links out, you get 1,000 people who sign up for it, and then 200 people show up, and hopefully only 50 of those are staff members. I think one of the coolest ones we did though this year, I got to take part in, which was we did a live, essentially a live webinar where we got to watch a game with Trevor Hoffman, our Hall of Fame closing pitcher. So he and I watched the game, and we had fans submit questions, and this was for our specific subset of our business, 25+ year members who were really part of our base when he was pitching. That was really cool. We were supposed to only go for 3 innings. I think we went for 5 or 6 because the questions just kept coming in and it was flowing really well. And our entertainment team did an awesome job of putting that together for us. So that was probably one of the coolest ones we've done. We've done a few different Budweiser happy hours with our CEO, our GM, and our owner, kind of giving the state of the team. Again, those are always great because people want to see behind the scenes. Typically, we'll have those town hall meetings in the seating bowl, and then we'll have 1,000 members out. But I think the team is finally turning the corner from from a win-loss perspective, and we were expecting a lot more tough questions, but now it's really, at the time, the number one question is, are you going to extend Tatis? And we delivered on that. So I think that's great. I'm excited to see what the next one holds, because what's the number one question going to be? When do we win a World Series? I don't know. Hopefully this year. I know there was a question in the chat. Jamie wanted to know what our prediction was. Hopefully it's us. Hopefully we play Jim or Paige and we beat them then. But I think we're hoping to start to turn the page a little bit to more hybrid. So what do we do virtually? What do we do in person? And one of the cool things we did during the season last year, we rented an Airstream RV. We wrapped it with Padres branding, and we went out into the community and did retail pop-up experiences. And we worked with a few of our partners, specifically Ballast Point. They've got a brewery here in town that outdoor dining was available. Outdoor dining was open. We put the Fryer Wagon, as we refer to it affectionately here, put the Fryer Wagon in the parking lot there. We sent a note out to all of our members, and we had about 200 people show up over a couple different days. And that was probably one of the best touch points we had with them, because they could get some of the new gear because they didn't know that the team store was still open downtown with retail being open. So it was just a way to take it to them. So really finding both avenues and trying to find the best way to communicate was a challenge, but definitely gave us a new opportunity to look at going into this year when we can have fans back, hopefully.
That's awesome. Yeah, some really cool initiatives there. Yeah, by the way, I saw Fernando Tatis, signed a $300, plus $1 million deal. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering when he's going to be hosting a virtual fine wine tasting with me and all the consumers, because he earned it. So
I think you might have to buy a premium platinum membership, Josh. We'll talk offline.
Fernando can afford it. Jim, what about you guys? Any cool, kind of interesting, initiatives you guys were doing from an engagement perspective to kind of mitigate, all the COVID stuff?
Yeah, I think the challenge for us, we do, especially on the premium side, we do a lot of off-site events. A lot of high-end steak dinners in downtown Chicago, road trips. Also we do a lot of entertaining. Our owner also owns Bulls, so we have that partnership. We entertain a lot of clients at a Bulls games and Bulls suites. Also some Blackhawks games. So we would do that before COVID. So we were trying to figure out how to replace that, because those are great experiences. And we did a lot of similar things these guys were talking about. And we've gotten to a point, and I think Kurt said it, everyone, even the clients, got to Zoom fatigue, where we started doing a lot of this stuff and everybody was doing it and setting up the calls and setting up the Zooms and everything else. But, your numbers just kept dwindling down and down and down as far as who was showing up to them. And we got feedback from our clients like, hey, what's going on? They're like, look, I'm on Zoom calls all day, and then I got to get on a Zoom call with you guys. And no offense, but yeah, I'm over it. So we were really we peeled back all the way back, and we just kind of went back to our regular touch points. Postseason helped. I tell you what, we also had, it wasn't a virtual one, but we had a no-hitter this season, which was obviously really rare, and no one was there to see it, which was buzzkill. But we did a pretty cool thing. Which even though most of our tickets are digital, we printed up a ticket for that game. So anybody that would have had a ticket to that game, season package or season ticket holders, I think even if you didn't have it in your 20 game package or your 40 game package, we printed up the old fashioned printed ticket with the picture of Giolito on there, celebrating no hitter, the date, everything just looks like a normal ticket, and sent it out with a letter. And we got tons of great reviews from that, and I think it was nice because everyone else watched it on TV and no one was there, and we sent them that ticket, and no one would have had the ticket. So we try to go a little bit touch point wise with regard to that. During that time, we had to get pretty creative and come up with something to go out to our fans with that exciting moment in White Sox history. But yeah, we're looking at. I'm gonna give Kurt a plug here. He just recently did a new business Zoom call webinar, and we were on there. We were all on there watching him give his pitch. I didn't buy. He wasn't much of a closer, but so he wasn't able to close me. But we are looking at doing something similar to that from a new business perspective as well, as we move forward to do some webinars and have some people on there and maybe get back to it, and hopefully we'll get fans in the stands, maybe back in person. But Kurt and his crew just put on a pretty good little thing regarding new business, and I think it went pretty well for him. So we're gonna rip that off from him for sure.
Jim is about to get 36 touch points from our inside sales team now.
I'll recruit him to Chicago.
I guess, guys, I wanted to shift a little bit and kind of discuss kind of where you're at in terms of successes and your business right now. Specifically on your sales. I mean, obviously you all went through renewals in the fall and into the winter this year. Where have you seen more success come in terms of people that are buying, in terms of what industries are you seeing success in, what industries, and then conversely are just not touching the product right now? I mean, obviously this probably be a little bit different market to market, but really just wanted to see where you're seeing success, what successes are coming in, what products they're buying, and what industries I think were really have an appetite to come out to a ballpark this year. So I guess, Paige, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. It's actually all over the board. And then, after Snowmageddon last week in Texas, pool companies are who we're going to be hitting up, in addition to roofing companies. But we've really been all over the board and who wants to come out. And when we were gearing up to not only do the NLCS championship and then World Series, we also had the National Finals Rodeo. So you don't know how people are going to embrace something. We had waiting lists for those. I mean, obviously for baseball, because everyone loves baseball, but we underestimated how many people would want to come out and do other things like the rodeo. And so we've been able to leverage those third-party events to get people involved in Ranger baseball. So you get first access to buy the rodeo. You also will be participating in some kind of event or groups or season tickets on the Ranger side. So we've been able to reach other groups of people that maybe weren't traditional baseball fans before that, but we've been very lucky. We've been able to continue to sell long-term contracts and season ticket contracts. I know not every team's able to do that, but once we were able to come back to work and start having potential clients come out and see what the product is, that's the best seller. It's anytime you get a chance to come out and look at what you would be investing in. And I will say one of the benefits of COVID, if there are any, is we were able to get some spaces fully finished and top tier prior to that. So as you know, for those of you who have moved into a new arena, stadium, ballpark, a lot of the times you're selling off manifests and presentations and renderings that you get from companies. That allowed us to finally show people, okay, this is the why. This is why you're coming out. This is the reason you want to be involved. Go back to your constituents and find people that do it with you. So because of that, I do think we've been able to still tap into a lot of the traditional markets. But I will say, looking at opening day and the clients we already had on board, we do talk to people that are like, my company won't let us entertain until June. We're on hold. I would love to come out personally. My family would love to come out, but we have restrictions that we can't entertain. So we're working with clients and figuring out ways to engage them. But different. It's all different to your state and what you deal with on what people are really buying, and you guys all know that.
Great, thanks, Paige. Jim, what about you guys? Is there anything specific in where you're seeing success in specific industries in the Chicago market?
Yeah, we don't have a specific industry or category. The Chicago market's got so many corporate headquarters too. I think that we're finding, in my time here at the White Sox, there's a lot of untapped market in as far as the corporations goes. We've got kind of our diehard Sox fans that are coming out, but matter of fact, I think we pulled John Markowitz is our director of sales, and I think we pulled like around 10,000 leads out of Zoom Info from a business perspective, and we tied it back to our registered users list, which is our email list, and there was only like 400 people out of the 10,000 that were in our registered user list or tied back to some sort of ticket purchase. So some people might say, wow, there's not many people in the market buying, corporation wise, buying the tickets, and they're right. But in my mind, that's an opportunity. And I think that a lot of people may or may not know this, but a lot of people are like, oh, you're either a Cubs fan or you're a White Sox fan. And honestly, that's partly true, but there's kind of a tweener that is, I would call him the bandwagoner in Chicago, and they can jump on our bandwagon. We got plenty of room. So just for the record, if anyone's listening out there in Chicago, but I think there's a lot of people that were going to the Cubs because it was the Cubs and they'd won the World Series and all that stuff. And now the tide is swinging back the other direction towards the South side. And we are seeing a lot of the Cubs clients calling us and having conversations with us saying, hey, we're, a club seat holder or a suite holder at the Cubs. You guys are on the upswing now. Let's get a partnership. And then obviously, once we get them in, we have to show them what we're all about with some of the other perks that we already talked about, and retain them even when the team isn't performing on the field, which hopefully won't be for a long time. But I think that's important. So I think it's sort of that tweener fan in the Chicago market that we're really targeting. And then also the opportunity, the untapped market in the businesses is just huge in Chicago. And we're going to start working that a little bit harder.
Great. Thanks, Jim. And Kurt, I guess for you, I mean, obviously there's a lot of PR and a lot of buzz about the Padres going into the season. I guess what are you seeing in terms of your, new buyers, who is coming on board, and any successes that you're having just because of, the excitement that on the field?
Oh, absolutely, Alex. I mean, our number one industry right now is trying to get the consumer market back because we just have spent so much time trying to drive new leads. So B2C has been our number one success throughout the pandemic because these are the people who have the ability to make their own decisions versus a corporation that probably has rules and restrictions around entertaining. We're kindling those relationships and keeping those warm. I think biotech, construction, real estate, and financial services have been the top four for us. But B2C, we made a strategic decision back in, I think, May or June to really just focus on every communication we put out in the marketplace. It's about priority access for 2021. How do we do that? Where do we put the message? And then how do you get that information? Because all of us on this call didn't have single game buyers last year. That's our number one lead source every single year. So I think since December 28th, we made the trades for Snell and Darvish, we've been extremely active in this space. We've generated over almost 6,000 leads in that time via different channels. I think one of the most exciting ones is we just haven't done this a lot since my time here, but we started to actually use our own Twitter account and Instagram account to actually put that message in the marketplace and drive new leads through request info forms. It's typically been via email and you're hitting the RU database the same time over and over and over again. But we also know that on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook, there's plenty of those leads that aren't crossing over to the RU database. I think our social media campaign specifically on Facebook has been one of our top lead sources as well. So just trying to find every way we can to replicate that single game buyer experience. And then the other thing too is we're not going to stop doing that once we start having fans back in the venue, because we're only going to sell a couple thousand seats every single night because of reduced capacity. So how do you use that and then enhance it with the single game buyer database that we're going to be putting on the system? So that's really been our focus right now. Our reps have been focused on virtual appointments. We use virtual venue through Ticketmaster and IO Media. We're set up everybody on Teams calls right now. So we're being actually more efficient than we probably were in the office in some instances, because you eliminate the drive time and walking the venue and spending a lot of time with the customer, maybe spending a little too much time. Like you probably never spend too much time, but there's moments where you want to be really efficient. And we've had to do that, right, with the virtual selling experience. And our team has really bought into it and invested their time accordingly. And it's proved fruitful. Especially during the off season, then everything just kind of, the world changed for us again in December with those trades.
Yeah, so the virtual appointments is really interesting. Obviously, we've talked a lot about, Zoom or Zoom fatigue, which we all probably have a little bit of. Do you guys envision like a hybrid, kind of setup when we're back, in kind of the new normal, right? There's 100% capacity in the building. Do you envision, I guess, some of the, initiatives or things that you guys have rolled out during COVID actually sticking in a post-COVID world? Like, what does that look like for you guys, Kurt? If you wanna kick us off.
No, it's a great question, Josh. We're working on that right now. I mean, our ballpark is deemed an essential service. So the ballpark has been open. Basically, our ballpark operations, IT, finance, and HR, they've all been there throughout the pandemic in different ways. The sales team has been remote since March. We've had a couple opportunities to go into the office every so often. But I think once we're able to reopen our offices here as we're preparing for fans in April, I think the hybrid approach is going to be something that we definitely use in the immediate. I don't know if it'll be here to stay, but I think the virtual appointment aspect, I don't think that's going to go away. I think to my earlier point about being efficient with your time, if you can meet with a customer via a web call right now versus having them drive down from North County, especially when traffic is really aggressive that time of the day, I think it's just a good use of your resources. So I think that there's going to be a combination, and then it just becomes part of our touch point process, how we layer that in. But I think once we get back to the office, it'll be more of a rotating schedule, making sure people feel comfortable. I think we'll obviously turn the dial up a little bit more once we get to 25+% capacity. But I think that that's going to be here to stay for at least the foreseeable future. And I think it's an efficiency play.
Paige, what about you guys?
We've been back since May 5th, and things we're doing in the office, we wear the masks, we socially distance, we make sure all of our conference rooms, are distanced with 6 feet apart. But as far as the appointment platform, we will do Zoom calls with people that don't feel comfortable coming in. We do have virtual presentation platforms that we can use. But, I sound like a broken record, but people, because we haven't had Ranger games yet with fans, people have been willing to come out here and come out and look and take tours. We have the tours department that sells tours. We're going to have a batting practice for our season ticket suite clients coming up at the end of March. So while we're putting the safety measures in place, for example, our suites have plexiglass between them. We're going to keep those in place. We're going to do those things and keep those going. But we're always going to be flexible in the way the consumer wants to look at product or have a call or not. We'll check in with people later, but there's so much flexibility now, where before, as you know, people thought, well, you can't work from home and make sales. Well, this is proven we actually can. Now, is it better when your team members are all back together? I personally think so, because they feed off each other. If you hear a sale, the guy or gal next to you is making a sale, you're going to make those 10 extra calls because you don't want them to put up more numbers at the end of the day. But we do have lots of options. And because the country is so different on what's going on as far as capacities and how many people can come in, the good news is we've got the technology and the great IT support systems in place to make sure everything's still moving.
Awesome. That's great. And Jim, what about you guys? Obviously both from a staffing perspective, but also curious, kind of some of the virtual, fan initiatives and things like that. Any things that will kind of stick that have been impactful during COVID that might be cool to keep flowing once COVID is subsided?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A lot of friends and people I've met throughout the years, they work for financial firms or LinkedIn, and they have, or Salesforce.com. They have these giant office spaces, and I think that a lot of them have talked about how they're just literally, thousands of square feet of office space, and they're just cutting it down either, by half or even more. And they're saving a ton of money by not renting office spaces and letting their sales and service teams be remote. I think for us, it's a little different because we don't necessarily pay rent like they pay rent, but we have our offices at most places in stadiums, in arenas, whatever it might be. So I think that along the same lines as Kurt and Paige, I think we'll ease into it a little bit and then see what we do from there. I'm sure, I don't know if any of my reps are on here, but I'm sure they'll be like, hey, I've been working remotely for 12 months. What's any different, and I think as an organization, they'll probably want to have us in there because like Paige said, it's better just to get a good feel and feed off of each other. There's days when reps just aren't motivated and don't want to do things just like anybody. And then the guy next to him or the gal next to him is cranking out calls or setting up appointments, and it lifts you up a little bit and gets you going as well. And I think that's sorely missed, sitting at home every single day. So I think that we'll start, a little bit of a hybrid, but then work back into full time. Some of our managers have already done this as well. Robert Clark, one of our group sales reps, just said he's on the call. He's asking if he can continue working remotely, just for the record. No, Clarky, you can't work remotely. Get back on the phones. They've done some power hours where they get everybody on a Zoom call and just turn their volume down a little bit and make calls so they can still listen to each other and feed off each other a little bit to try and make it work. But I think eventually we'll be back in the office, knock wood, and sooner rather than later, and, get away from any type of remote things. I think that the tough part is, and some people have asked me, are you more efficient? And I said, I'm not more efficient because I think day to day, there's so many variables and so many changes in our business. I can walk into a director's or, office and be like, hey, I got these 5 things, and roll through 5 things and be in and out of there in 7 or 8 minutes. Whereas now I got to set up a call, find when they're available, get with them and get other people on the call. It just takes way more time. So getting back to the office, I think that will help with that as far as make us more efficient. I'll be curious to see though, like now when you're done at 4:15 with calls and work and everything and emails, you're done at 4:15, like you're in your basement or you're in your office. And, typically you're done at 4:15, you hang around the office because that's the way it's supposed to be till 5:15 in the off season. And then you commute home for another hour. I'll be curious to see if some people will start, kind of getting out when their day is over versus when their day is supposed to be over, if that makes sense.
We can only hope. We can only hope, right? So cool. Well, we got a couple minutes left. Why don't we kick off some Q&A while we have a few minutes? We've had some good questions come in. Alex, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so anybody who's attending, go ahead and throw some questions in the chat if you have anything for our panelists. One came in, I think this is right up your guys' alley, especially, working with or talking with our friends from FEVO today. How are you planning on doing group sales and handling your hospitality areas this year with a socially distanced manifest, and just kind of how is that going to work specifically for groups and hospitality?
I can jump in on that one. The way we're doing group tickets, with the pods that are in place, we're doing 2s and 4s. We would pull groups in pods of 2 and 4. So if you have 10 people, you would, 4, 4, 2. So they won't be together, so to speak, but they can still be sold in a group, and we can apply the group discount. Something new, and we never would have thought we had to do this going into a brand new ballpark. We are selling groups for 10 people. So in essence, the name group sale, people are like, well, should we even be in a group right now? Well, yes, you should. We think you should. But having that space to allow for them to come out as a group of friends, or your church or your Boy Scouts or company, but yet still being social. And then they have to decide where they want the people to sit. And then the hospitality spaces would just have less people, spread out.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing in San Diego. I think the big piece is going to be the mobile ticketing distribution. We were pretty paper-based on the group sales side, especially in our hospitality areas. So moving that to a mobile platform through Ticketmaster is going to be extremely important to work on that communication.
Same for us. We've got groups that want to, even though they can't sit together, will want to come out to the ballpark and sit separately, so to speak. We'll accommodate them if we have the inventory. So we'll have to wait and see, as state and local officials say, when we can exactly when we can put people in the ballpark and figure out what that capacity is. If we have capacity, we'll take care of those groups.
Another good question that kind of came in that's similar. How are you guys handling kind of internal requests for sponsors, player tickets, right? Like obviously there's limited capacity. There's one kind of allotment that you have to slice up the pie on. Like, how are you guys kind of handling your internal ticket distribution as well?
We're finalizing that right now, but the player distribution pool really hasn't changed much. We're just trying to figure out where they're going to be sat. We're actually meeting this afternoon on the corporate side to make sure we put all of our corporate partners in and slot them into our manifest, slot ownership into our manifest in specific households, and then we'll build the rest of our season ticket base on top of that.
That's what we're doing in Texas. We just had our meeting yesterday.
Same.
Time for one more question from one of our guests, Alex. If you wanna grab one, there's a few good ones in the chat.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, I know Kurt, you mentioned, and Paige, you guys are doing as well, is how are you handling going fully or mostly fully digital for this year, and what that communication is going to look like for those mobile tickets and for your fans?
Good question.
So for us, we were moving that direction anyway. We were going to allow group tickets for the challenges that Kurt mentioned. If you've got a group of 20 people and you've got 2 adults and all the kid tickets, and a couple kids are old enough to go get concessions, well, if they don't have that on their phone or don't have a phone, how are we going to deal with that? So it's working through those small roadblocks, but we'll get through it. And then just the communication that because of what we're dealing with and because we're coming out of a pandemic, we have to do this not only so you can get in and out of the ballpark quicker, but also to provide a safer environment for you to be here. Less touch points.
Yeah, we were planning on doing our best to rip the Band-Aid off this year anyway. There's a small segment of our base that still gets commemorative stock tickets. That's going away this year, honestly, because we didn't know if the schedule would be changing or reduce the number of games. But I think from a group perspective, it's just going to be in how you position it with the customer. I think to Paige's point, like, this is the way the world is moving right now. I think we've been pretty good to adopt, but slower than most. I think when you think about the airline industry and just boarding passes being on your phone on a constant basis, like, to me, it feels intuitive. But I think when you're distributing that many tickets at scale, it is definitely going to be a challenge. That's where you guys help us come into play and get those tickets distributed. So I think for us, it's just about making sure people know this is why we're doing what we're doing.
I think people understand it nowadays, you know, the direction we're going with it. We were going that direction with the White Sox anyway. We probably had under 100 accounts who were going to print outside of groups. Groups, as everyone knows, you know, is a little bit different experience, but now we're going full in, all digital. And, you know, people probably will complain, but, you know, hopefully they understand under the circumstances why we're doing what we're doing.
If you guys need help digitizing those group tickets, I know a guy that can probably help you out. So
There it is. I knew it was coming.
all right. Well, thank you so much, guys. This has been really wonderful. Alex, thanks for your support. Paige, Jim, Kurt, really appreciate you guys participating and kind of sharing some of your insights. A lot to be optimistic, I think, over the next few months. The live event industry is in, you know, inning one of what is about to be a nice bull market and kind of back to the new normal. So we're excited and really grateful to have you guys as partners.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.